Good everyone, thank you so much for joining the MegaPath webinar today. This is Michael Farthing and Matt Mayhew. We're very glad that you're here today. Today's webinar is on how to choose the right SD-WAN solution for each customer. So we'll talk about the couple of options that we've got and the differences between them, and really the right verticals, the right type of customer for each of those solutions, as well as some other things that are happening here at MegaPath and specifically with SD-WAN. Now, a housekeeping note, everyone is on mute, so please, if you will put all of your questions as we walk through this today into the chat window, at the end of the session, we'll answer all of those. So please, throughout the session, as you think of those questions, go ahead and put them right into the chat window, and then right at the end, we'll come back and answer all of those. So Michael Farthing here, Senior Sales Engineer, dedicated to the channel team, and I will walk through the first part of the presentation, and then we have Matt Mayhew, who is our product manager for our managed network and security services, which SD-WAN is one of them, who will walk through. And at the end, we're going to show you live really the power of SD-WAN Enterprise. So let's jump right in. Again, as you have questions, if you will, please go ahead and put them in the chat area. That would be perfect. So I'll just move my screen around here and away we go. So we do want to give you a heads up on MegaPath. Sometimes we've got people that are joining us that are new to the partner program, and we want to make sure you have a good sense of everything that MegaPath can do and offer for your clients. So keep in mind that MegaPath has a very broad portfolio, both for access, kind of the foundation of things, as well as voice and managed network services. Around voice, these days unified communications is the hot topic. But keep in mind that we can be the phone system for customers, or for those organizations who have a great phone system, we can provide trunks or lines to them as well. Then for managed network and security, SD-WAN is the prime solutions there. We'll go over our two different options. It's great because you've got flexibility here with MegaPath. It's not a one-size-fits-all as many other many other carriers are. And then also keep in mind, another area that's just flying off the shelf is managed Wi-Fi. More and more organizations want to move that off of their plate and have a carrier take care of it. We can do that for you. And we would say that a huge differentiator with MegaPath is our 100% US-based support. The whole service delivery team about having everyone get a project manager that watches their voice or their SD-WAN solution or their Wi-Fi solution get from the ground up all the way through the end of the install process. And MegaPath has been around for over 20 years doing these things, so we're not new to this game by any means. Here's some of the verticals that we work with. Obviously, you can see restaurant and retail is huge. We've been a big part of that space for many, many years. Also, finance and healthcare are big areas that we do quite well with. And I would say for finance services, insurance, legal firms, those are also very common smaller offices that we work with. Sometimes those are chains, and sometimes it's just one-off locations, but all will benefit from MegaPath solutions. So some things to think about as you're identifying, what is this whole SD-WAN thing about? Is it really working for my organism, my customer, and what kind of customers should I look for and try to match this up? So first up, an outright outage of a customer's location. If they've just got that one circuit and it goes down, what happens to that customer? Is this an inconvenience, or is this losing massive amounts of money? I suspect it's really the latter. And if they have one location, they can absolutely benefit from SD-WAN. But if they're a distributed enterprise in lots of locations, even better. Some customers will have sort of a do-it-yourself type approach where they have set up their own VPN tunnels. Other customers will have MPLS, and this is definitely a managed solution that we can provide to customers. For sure, an alternative to MPLS. This is a much less costly, much less complex type of setup. And as customers look to get away from managing boxes themselves, they can feel confident in providing that over to MegaPath. Now, these days, a big part of it is all around making sure that your applications work well. As the location of the applications moves from in-house data centers out to the cloud, even your largest of organizations are doing that, how do you ensure that the application still is going to work well, both at headquarters and across to all the locations that need to connect to it, even though it's sitting sort of outside of the organization's direct control? Again, SD-WAN can help do that, especially the enterprise side of it. And kind of this next bullet around, is there enough bandwidth? That really dovetails quite nicely with MPLS. We see so many organizations that today have smaller circuits, particularly T1s or maybe bonded T1s, and they're finding that's just not enough. And they want to be able to use things like cable or fiber products like Fios, UVerse, and such, maybe Ethernet circuits, and they can do that all with SD-WAN, whereas things like MPLS, you're locked into very specific circuit types. It doesn't lend itself to flexibility there. So no, SD-WAN, you do have that. And of course, nobody wants to move off from what they're doing today into something new and have security go out the window. As we're hearing more and more, it seems like the pace of hijacking data is growing rather than going the other way around. So it's really incumbent upon us as technology professionals to encourage customers, you need to move into having high security with everything you're doing. Communications between sites, communications at the sites. Security should be top of mind for every organization. And with SD-WAN for MegaPath, you can keep that top of mind. Oftentimes, we've talked about this already, customers are wanting to take their thin or even non-existent IT teams and costs and get more bang for the buck. You definitely have a full force multiplier with MegaPath. When you have SD-WAN from us, we're taking care of all of the firmware updates, all of the security updates. You want to keep abreast of that for things like HIPAA and PCI compliance. You're able to use whatever circuits you want as an organization. You're not locked into specific like T1s or Ethernet from a particular carrier, so you have flexibility in being able to find the most bandwidth for the least amount of money there. And then, if you have a thin IT team, you probably are just struggling as a customer to handle proprietary projects, much less keeping the server over here going or keeping the firewall up to date. And so you can move off your WAN side of things over to MegaPath, and we can take care of that for you. Of course, customers don't want to lose control, and they're not. You still influence everything by telling us how it should be configured, or maybe we help you with that, but you don't have to worry about an out-of-date firmware or security licensing that was forgotten about, and you're no longer up to date there. We can do that all for you. So what's going on out there in the WAN today? Gartner here is saying that people today are doing many very brittle point solutions. Oftentimes it's MPLS, and you're trying to bond T1s, for example, or just get every last penny out of MPLS. It's going to be hard to do. By moving traffic, or I should say not so much traffic, applications out to the cloud, and just how we're interacting across the web and with others out in the world, Gartner is saying that roughly every 3 years, network traffic is doubling. Sites are needing more bandwidth, headquarters needs more bandwidth, your cloud services are growing, so it's all about getting the most possible bandwidth out there. So customers want to take advantage of this. They don't want to be stuck in the old days. And of course, this is all due to really the cloud. People find that it's much easier to scale up and scale down out in the cloud than have to do it in-house. So think about this, your typical SLA, 3 nines. If you figure there's almost 9,000 hours in a year, what does that 3 nines get you? It gets you an hour of downtime every year. So that's where we would say just a single circuit, not enough. You definitely need to have redundancy. We would also encourage you to think about the fact that a circuit that's performing poorly but is still passing packets is not down. It's not an outage of that circuit. It's what we're referring to as a brownout. And so if you had a traditional failover scenario, and the primary circuit was still live but performing poorly, the failover would not kick in. And so the result to the customer would be, it looks kind of like it's performing really, really poorly, but you're not moving traffic over to maybe a secondary circuit. So we call that a brownout. That's really just as much of a problem, or sometimes even more than an actual outage, because you're having performance that's not so great. So we'll show you a good way to take care of both of those. So in the largest of organizations, and here 95% of them say on average an hour of downtime, just an hour, could cost their company over $100,000. So what does that equal if you're talking about a whole day of outage? Obviously, this is a very large organization. Many of the companies you're working with are a bit smaller, but still, think of having to figure out for themselves if their sales are, 10,000 a day. What does that day cost them, or what does a half day of outage cost them? And they'll start to see that the cost of being down for a while or having poor performance definitely outweighs really any sense of even having a great service. So it pays for itself almost. Kind of like having insurance, really. So let's talk about specifically some SD-WAN and for what it entails and everything. So know that with MegaPath, we've actually pulled out two top options for you, best of breed we're saying here. We call one SD-WAN Pro, and the other is an SD-WAN Enterprise solution. For bullet 2, OTT stands for over the top, meaning we're flexible. You can combine circuits that a customer already has with MegaPath SD-WAN, or you can get circuits from us. That would be the bundled access. You're not locked into just our circuits, and you can use any wired circuit you wish, and we can even bring in wireless failover as well as an additional option, or maybe the backup if there's not anything else good wired-wise. You absolutely can use this for both single and multiple sites. Particularly our SD-WAN Pro, there's a lot of capabilities built right in, everything from next generation firewall through a very extensive unified threat management solution built right into it. Well, even somebody at a single location needs that stuff. Obviously, if multi-sites, they need it everywhere. So definitely make that happen for them. Fully managed means that we're going to work with you and the customer to understand how should we put together the firewall, content filtering, subnets, VLANs, access control lists, that type of stuff. Our install team is going to build out the cloud management area, and the MegaPath tech is going to come out and install the devices at the customer locations. So that's what we mean by fully managed. We install it, and then on an ongoing basis, again, we're taking care of all of the security updates, the firmware updates. If a change needs to be done, that's easy to do. You simply contact the support team, and you can do that either through the admin portal and put in a ticket, or you can contact them immediately if you need something done right then, and then we will work with you to actually make that happen. From an install perspective, you're getting complementary design capabilities from sales engineers like myself. We're working with you to put it all together so we can install it. And also during the install phase, a project manager is going to be assigned and dedicated to that customer. And it will be the same person all the way through from beginning to end. So that's your primary point of contact during the install phase, and also for 90 days after the install has happened. So we want to have continuity there. And again, on an ongoing basis for support, everybody is right here in our two NOCs, either Herndon, Virginia, or Seattle, Washington. And down there is just an example of, in this case, what it looks like for the SD-WAN, being able to aggregate multiple circuits or failover if need be. So here's some feature differences between the two. We'll talk also about who you should look for each one. Let me back up here. So Pro, that middle column, this is a solution that has a security appliance or device that goes to each of the customer's sites, and it is able to look at all of your sessions, and it absolutely can balance between a couple of wired circuits, or could do an outright failover if they'd rather do that. But usually if there's multiple wired circuits, we do load balancing, right? Get the best bang for the buck that way. It is looking at just the sessions, and it is able to do upstream traffic shaping. So we can say that voice or video has a higher priority on something like web surfing. Contrast that with what we call a network-based solution. On the extreme right-hand column, the SD-WAN Enterprise service, this actually looks at things at the packet level. And it not only has a device at the customer location, but there's also a gateway or data center on the far end of things. So logically, the last mile, whatever circuits you're using for that, has devices on either end of those, so that we're able to look at everything in real time and do things like have dynamic path selection, bandwidth aggregation, forward error correction to fix any issues, priority routing in both directions, not just the one, so it's both directions, and real-time failover, specifically for something like voice or video. If it's critical to a customer that their calls not drop, their sessions not drop, the enterprise solution is the way to do it. So let's talk now about which customers for what. So we would say that for the different verticals here, Pro is going to be great for those more distributed enterprises that maybe have a lot of smaller type locations. For example, think restaurant and retail, right? There's usually just a couple phones, maybe a handful of employees at any given time. So Pro is perfect for that. Security is all built right in, has a very frugal entry point for the solution. So we've definitely found that restaurant and retail, real estate, the small, insurance, or say small banks, attorneys' offices, all benefit from having the Pro solution. It's a great price point, has all the security that they need, and for the most part, these are also organizations where something like a phone call dropping is, not the end of the day, right? It's annoying, but they can move right along without too much hassle. Versus a more larger organization, say a contact center or healthcare in this case, professional services, maybe a very large banking location, big entertainment or media companies, any place where you have a large concentration of people, lots of phone calls may be happening, lots of very critical data happening, where the last mile of circuits that don't necessarily perform that great, any place where you need that end-to-end traffic shaping and traffic optimization and real-time failover, that's where you're going to want to go for the enterprise solution. So the easiest question to go in with first is, how critical is having that real-time failover? Not everybody's going to say that a phone call dropping is that big of a deal. So if it's not, Pro is probably where you'd want to start. But if they say, yes, absolutely, I need that real-time failover, then you're going down the enterprise path. So next, we're going to take a look at some things you can do about brownouts and real-time outages. And so I'm going to turn it over to Matt Mayhew, Product Manager for our Managed Network and Security Services, and take it from there.
All righty, thank you very much, Michael. And today I wanted to actually look at a couple of demonstrations of what the SD-WAN Enterprise product can do. Michael just did a great job of highlighting the features and the benefits of both, and I wanted to go through and actually show you what some of the powerful features and benefits of the enterprise-specific solution look like. So in this situation, we're going to look at the effect of a brownout. And what we're saying with brownouts, and Michael touched on it earlier on the outage slide, is that an outage doesn't necessarily mean a complete, circuit cut or, complete blackout. Very often, especially with cable, we're seeing that you're going to get latency, you're going to get jitter, you're going to get, poor performance due to a number of reasons, and that's going to affect your applications differently, right? So for example, if you have a hosted Exchange file, it doesn't matter if your email gets there 10 to 20 seconds later than your email would get if it's a clean circuit. But for a voice call or a video conference, that's going to affect it much differently. And so in this scenario, we've got two circuits. So we've got a customer that thinks they're doing a really good job because they've not only got a primary, but they have a secondary. Their primary circuit, or WAN 1 in this scenario, is a really large cable circuit. But for some reason or another, it's experiencing 2% packet loss. They also have a secondary clean bonded T1 circuit. And we're going to look at two pictures. On the left with no SD-WAN Enterprise and just standard failover. And on the right, SD-WAN Enterprise and dynamic path selection and real-time application failover. So on the left, the circuit hasn't actually failed. So that packet loss is going to affect that video conference pretty largely. And that bonded T1, which is a secondary circuit, is not going to engage because the primary circuit hasn't actually failed. So let's take a look at what this looks like. And you can see on the left there, that's really poor performance, and that's just 2% packet loss, and that's going to cause you some problems. But on the right, the real-time application performance monitoring and being able to select which circuit the packets go over real time, you're able to actually clean that signal up, and you're able to really get through without any real performance degradation at all. And so let's take a look at another scenario. If we move on to our next one, we're actually going to look at the effect of a complete circuit failure. So we're going to have two circuits, and we're actually going to have Michael bring up his demo dashboard. He actually has an SD-WAN enterprise device in his home office. And so Michael, if you want to bring over that dashboard as I set the scene here, we're going to look at what happens to his live voice call going over the SD-WAN enterprise solution when we physically unplug one of his circuits. So you'll see there at his home office, he has two circuits. He has a Verizon Fios and he has a Comcast cable line. And you'll notice right there on the right, you can see the available bandwidth as well as the current up to the second throughput of both of those circuits. Now, if Michael were to go over to the Sources tab, you could see that he is actually taking this call directly from this. This is his home office. And this actually has this SD-WAN enterprise device in his location. And you could see right there the number 2 client is his current phone call that's going over the circuit.
Using our Unified Communications MegaPath 1.
Correct. So if we go back up to the Overview tab, what Michael's going to do now is going to signify a down circuit. So Michael, if you could count starting from 10 down to 1, and halfway through, if you could unplug one of those circuits, and we'll see how your live voice call handles that.
Absolutely. So everybody should be able to hear me. We're on a great call. So I'll just count right down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there we are. We're seeing it. Call is still live, still sounding great, but in the dashboard you see that circuit is gone. It is completely unplugged. No access to it at all, but nary a syllable missed.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. In a standard failover scenario, his call would have dropped. It would have taken anywhere from 30 seconds to 45 seconds to a minute for that secondary cable to take over the load. But in this situation, with dynamic path selection, the SD-WAN enterprise device sensed that Comcast cable had gone down, and it made sure that all of the packets then went over the Verizon circuit. So just for examples purposes, let's do the same thing and plug it back in, and we can see how the SD-WAN enterprise device handles a circuit coming back online.
Absolutely. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we see pretty quick that packets start getting picked up. And back to you, Matt.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you noticed right around the 5 or 6 mark, the packets got picked up on the throughput. A second or two later, the status went back to green, and we didn't miss a word of the countdown. We didn't miss a syllable of the countdown either. So this is really the power that the SD-WAN enterprise device can bring, and this solution is able to really go to your customers and say, if downtime is just not acceptable at all, this is a solution for you.
I'm also bringing up the quality of experience page or tab. This shows the last 24 hours. And so we're able to look at a glance and see the top one is what is the end user at the site experiencing, and 10 is perfect score. So people at this location, if this was a big organization we're working with, they'd be like, hey, everything is great. And it's true, one of the circuits is performing really well. One of the circuits is having some issue. Now, the solution will still use both circuits for whatever bandwidth it can get out of them, but notice the office does not notice that one of the circuits actually is having some issues. Everything from a little bit of an outage at one point, all the way through maybe some packet loss or jitter, depending on the time of day. So there we have it.
All righty. Thank you, Michael. Okay, moving on. So I wanted to quickly highlight how MegaPath handles service delivery. Michael quickly touched on this earlier, but we do have a dedicated project management team that works with customers and partners during the install to secure and make sure that the install goes from ink to install to our US-based technical support team, and it's really a streamlined process, and we found that with this dedicated project management, we've seen that our CSAT scores have gone way up across the board. And if we can go to the next slide, MegaPath is putting our money where our mouth is. We've rolled out our MegaPath Red program. And what MegaPath Red is it's not necessarily a promotion, more as a program for the customers that just simply cannot afford downtime. And what this includes is a customer that is purchasing our SD-WAN enterprise product, which we just saw in action, a MegaPath T1 or Ethernet circuit, plus a secondary circuit. Now that secondary circuit does not have to be a MegaPath provided. Obviously we have a great portfolio to pull from. We have both wired and wireless solutions, but in order to be eligible for MegaPath Red, you just have to have 2 circuits, SD-WAN Enterprise, and what that's going to get you is, first of all, free proactive monitoring on those circuits. So we just simulated a circuit going hard down. Well, in that scenario, we would actually automatically open up a trouble ticket with MegaPath. We would notify the customer, and we would get working on that. And a lot of times, the customer has no idea because the SD-WAN Enterprise service is doing its job. So we're going to get those tickets open and working on. We're going to give a 10% discount right off the top to any voice services that the customer is interested in. You're going to get a priority 800 number and PIN for technical support. So if any scenario where you need to call into MegaPath, you're going to get right to the front of the line. You're going to get priority ticket handling, and you're going to get a 100% uptime SLA. And if we go to the next slide, I'll actually talk a little bit more about that and what comes with that. So MegaPath was doing some research as we built these products, and we found that, sure, some competition is putting 100% SLA on maybe the SD-WAN Enterprise or their version of the enterprise service, but really, what does that mean, right? That's a small credit on a small portion of the order. What MegaPath has done, if a customer is a Red in the Red program, they're going to get 50% bill credit or $100,000 bill credit, whichever is greater, if the SLA is not met. So if you've got MegaPath SD-WAN Enterprise, 1 MegaPath T1 or Ethernet circuit plus a secondary circuit, we're going to guarantee 100% uptime, and we're really going to put our money where our mouth is. This is very unique in market.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Matt. And we do have a couple of questions now that we're into the session. So thanks, Connie, for putting those in. So first off, how long has the solution been available from MegaPath? So the SD-WAN Pro, we've been selling that since 2015. And then the SD-WAN Enterprise, we brought on this year, earlier this summer. Next question is, how long from approval to install? So this is great. If the circuits are already installed, and the customer gets us the information we need to, say, build out the firewall, content filtering, then we can install it in about 2 weeks. If we need to wait on the circuit, then it's just the circuit time frame, and common number there is like 30 to 45 days, depending on what circuit type it is. And then just a couple of days after that, we would install the SD-WAN. And once that's going in, then MegaPath Voice, for example, could be put right on it as well. Are there any other questions today that we can help with? Feel free to put them right in the chat. We'll give just a few seconds for that. So you've got contact information for both of us, Michael Farthing, sales engineer, email and number, and same for Matt. And I want to thank Matt so much for joining us today. It's been a great session. And it looks like we don't have any other questions at the moment. So if you do think of something later, feel free to reach out to us. But thank you so much for joining the MegaPath webinar today. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar next month. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Take care.